Hello, and welcome to the Coachman. First and foremost, let me just say, I want to wish everybody a happy Halloween. Hopefully, it's safe and a ton of fun. And also, welcome to the second season, where there's going to be a lot of wonderful stories from a lot of wonderful countries and places. But to start off this second season, I'm not going to read you a story today. I'm actually going to be telling you a story of my Halloween 24 years ago. So, throughout my life, football or soccer has always been one of the biggest pieces. I love the game. I watch it all the time. And even to this very day, if there's a big game at 3:30 in the morning, I will wake up and I will watch it with no doubt. But at 19, I just finished my first year of university. I actually played rugby, needed a change and, just started going back to playing football. And I was also going to the local community college and I was working like three jobs. So I was like always busy and moving around. And I just remember one time I had a conversation with a lifelong friend, Will Whitty, lovely dude, awesome, still extremely active in coaching football. So it's really great. And we had this conversation then at 19, and he was like, yo, I think you should join the team. I'm just kind of looking at him like, dude, I haven't played in like a year. And he's like, oh, yo, you're still fast enough. You're still good enough. Just come on out. So I went to our university. I went to the tryouts, and it was Millersville University of Pennsylvania. I walked on, so there was nobody scouting me or anything. And I walked on, and out of like, I think there were like 9 other guys that walked on with me. And it just so happens I made the team, and I was the only walk on to make it. So I was feeling pretty proud, went into the season, and I didn't play barely at all, but it was okay. I was still on the team, still had a great time. And at the end of the season, when the season was all done, we finished up, and they always had an inter-squad tournament. The way it worked is that they would divide all the kids and all the players by their respective area. So they had, of course, my university was in my city. So I was in Lancaster County. So they took all the kids from the county and they put all of us together. And then I think it was also like Jersey and New York. Then they had Northern Pennsylvania. And then I think they had another team of like everybody else who may have been from like Maryland or somewhere else, like really far away. It just so happened that my team was probably the worst, if not one of the worst teams. Like just by looking at the players wise, like we were the guys who may not have been as recruited or whatever. And we also didn't have that many guys. So I think it was like myself. It was John Baumberger, who was a forward, Will, who was a forward, and myself, who I was a defender, midfielder. I could probably do everything. And I think that was it. We might have had like 3 or 4 guys, and everybody else had like 6, 7 guys. And they were like, oh, you guys are going to get smoked. So we had to take on like a substitute. And it just so happened, I think we took on one of the coaches, and I think his name was Eckersley. That was his last name. This guy, he was like incredibly athletic, but he had one screw loose, and he wasn't all quite there, and did some really off the wall stuff and said some off the wall stuff too. But by the end of the tournament, like it was kind of funny that the worst team, which was us, happened to be in the final with the other worst team. So it was quite an interesting evening. You know what I mean? Just like a lot of guys talking trash to me. And then all of a sudden it's like, yo, go stand over there because you're a bunch of scrubs. So the final starts, and, it's a goal here, a goal there. And then it starts to get as it gets later and later, you can kind of feel like the tensions start to build and build and build. And from my memory, it was just myself, Baumberger, and I think something happened to Will, because I remember, like, I don't know what happened, but it ended up being like 4 of us on the team, right? So 4 on 4. So the field now was really pretty like spread out, a lot of room to run. It was back and forth, and it like you saw guys getting winded. And At one point, we hear the coaches or one of the players who was taking time. He yells 1 minute. And now it's really getting pressure cooker time. And we're all like, oh, dude, we got to start playing. And then all of a sudden he says 30 seconds. And I'll never forget it. At 30 seconds, there I am on the left-hand side. And I'm dropping back because somebody just took a shot. Eckersley, he picks up the ball and he's looking and he's about to throw it to me. But my man, he gets closer to me and then he can't pass it. As soon as he did, my man came to me. I look at Eckersley. He looks away and he looks up the field to Baumberger. Now, Baumberger, he was like a very tall, slender, like Hispanic, looking dude. But he was incredible with his feet. He had one of the best touches ever. And all I can remember is looking, and as soon as his eyes went and moved to Baumberger, I looked at Baumberger, and then there was just nothing but space in front of me. And I just took off. Eckersley, he throws it kind of like sidearm, like a pitcher to Baumberger. I'm by myself. Baumberger just takes the ball on the outside of his foot and just flicks it and puts it right in front of me. All of a sudden, there's just nothing but me, the goalie, and the goal. And that was it. So I'm running as fast as I can, and I'm within like about 5 feet. I took like 2 more steps, and I was like, hey, you got 2 steps, shoot it, and then jump. Because the keeper's going to come out at a 1-on-1. Lo and behold, I take 2 steps. The goalie comes out. Now, the thing about their goalie was it wasn't a real goalie. It was another player because the other team, just like ours, didn't have a lot of players. So it happened to be a guy named Jeff, who was actually like a really incredible utility player, but he just didn't play a lot like I did. But he was really good at goalkeeper too. He could just do anything. So I remember him, and he was tall, like 6'4", slender, and he comes running out. I'm like, dude, you got 2 steps, and then shoot and jump. I take my 2 steps. I hit it on the inside of my like boot. It takes off, and I just happen to look up, and I can see the ball. It's about 3 inches wide of the goal, but it's spinning back towards the goal, and I'm like, excuse me. I was like, I just scored. The minute I thought I just scored, I took too many steps, and I knew it. And I was like, oh, I took too many steps. The next thing you know, all I remember is just, I see Jeff out of the corner of my eye, and he just becomes a blur. And then I end up on my back. So I'm on my back, and I'm laying there, and I'm just like, what just happened? And it just so happens, I look up, and all of a sudden I'm looking at the sky. And then I hear a lot of chattering around me, like here and there, oh. And then this excruciating pain just like shoots up my leg, and I just start screaming. And then it's just euphoria. Almost as if everybody remembers, like if you've ever had let's just say, if you've ever been in a hospital and they tell you to count backwards when you're about to get like the anesthetics. And it's like when you get to about like 8 and you're kind of getting tired, but it's just like, ooh, it just feels like the world around you is just like a body of water. And that's what happened. And then all of a sudden there was no pain. And I look up and I just see I see Will, another guy, Brian, the head coach, Eberly, and a couple of people. And they're all like, dude, saying stuff. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, why am I on the ground? And I'm like, well, get up. So I sit up and I look down and I'm looking down, like, and I kind of sit up. And as I'm sitting up, I wince a little bit because it feels like something like hit my leg. And I look at I'm looking down to my leg. I'm looking down at my knee. Then I look a little further. And then as I'm looking at like towards my ankle, I see my boot. But I'm not looking at the top of my foot. I'm almost looking at the bottom of my foot, as like my leg is straight and it looks like my ankle is at like from about my mid ankle like right above that bone that sticks out on the side. I'd say about like 3 inches up. It's literally turned inside to the left about 45 degrees angles. And then I just say, hey, I just lay down and I'm just laying there. So the trainer comes out. She looks at it. She goes, yeah, you definitely broke your leg. And I was just like, oh, man. I'm like, one step. So just to give you an idea, if you haven't figured it out, what happened was when I took that extra step, Jeff, he was sliding out. He actually rolled over onto my ankle. And then as I was going one way, he was going outwards towards me. And that's when I broke my leg. After they get like me kind of settled, they put an air cast on my leg and they pump it up as much as they can. And they tell Scotty, the captain, his name was Scotty Laser. And they said, hey, they were trying to figure out everything. And the next thing you know, they're carrying me to the parking lot. And I'm wondering like, well, why don't I hear any ambulances or anything like that? And no, they just carried me to the parking lot, opened up the back of Scotty's like 1994 gray Saab and throw me in the back. And they say, Scotty, take him to the hospital. They're like, don't worry, we'll call and they'll know that you guys are coming. So they put me in the back. Scotty and I are driving every so often. You know, we hit a bump and my leg kind of, you know, it stings a bit. Scotty's like, oh man, sorry about that. I'm like, nah, don't worry, Scotty. It's cool. You know, it happens. And we finally make it down to the ER. So he goes in, tells the lady what happened, comes out and gets a wheelchair. We go in there and we're just sitting there. Now, this whole time, it was maybe like about an hour and a half since I broke my leg. And I'm like, oh, I haven't even told my mom yet. Or my parents. Like, nobody knows. It was just the team and me and Scotty. So I call my mom and I'm like terrified because I'm like, wait, I just messed myself up. My mom's not going to be too happy because I'm sitting in the ER and yeah, all I can think of is she's going to be pissed because of these bills that are about to come. So I call her, you know, the phone rings and she's like, hello. And I'm like, Mom, I got to tell you something. I'm in the ER right now and I just broke my leg. Now, I'm sure all of you know that terrifying feeling when you make a mistake and you have to tell your parents, like, this isn't going to be good. And I was really scared. And my mom goes, what? She's like, are you for real? We were just about to go out for trick-or-treating. And all of a sudden, I just started laughing because I knew she wasn't angry or pissed off. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know, sorry, Mom, my bad. So we kind of sit there and we're kind of laughing and I'm like, no, I'm okay. And I'm like, I'm just waiting here with Scotty. I'm like, don't worry about it. I was like, instead of you having to come over here, I'm like, just go trick-or-treating. I'll go stay at Scotty's house. And then I'll just see you tomorrow because the next day, we were actually going to have like an alumni day anyway. So I was going to see her and I was going to play against the alumni or whatever. So I was like, I'll just see you there. So we hang up the phone and I'm waiting. They take me back into the emergency room. They look at my leg and because it was so late, they said, hey, we can't really do anything for you because there's no doctor. So we're going to just have to put you in a soft cast. And then you're going to have to go see another doctor so that they can make schedules because you're probably going to need to break it and then or like set it and then have it put in a cast or you can decide whatever it is. I said, okay. So it was like now it was about like 8:30, 9 o'clock or whatever. And it just so happens that Scotty reminded me that there was a party. And I was like, well, he's like, do you just want to go back to my house? And I was like, no, I don't want to just go and sit there. I was like, I'll just go back, change, and we'll go to the party. So we go back to his house, get all changed, and we go to the party. Now, remember, it's Halloween. And all I'm doing is I'm wearing a set of bibs. I have crutches and I'm wearing, you know, regular clothes. The only thing about me is that I just don't have a right shoe. So I'm sitting on this I think I make it up into the house and I sit down with my leg propped up on a couch. And Scotty's sitting there. Other people were sitting there. I can't drink now because I think they gave me, no, I could drink because I didn't take any of the medicine yet. But I'm like, well, I might as well have a few drinks, hang out for a bit. And then when I go home, I guess I can't be mixing. So we're standing there and people are coming up to me from the team. They're like, hey, how's it going, man? You feeling all right? How is it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm cool. So it just so happens that next thing you know, I'm standing here and I'm talking to this pretty attractive young lady, and she was a witch. That's how I remembered her. And we're talking and we're hanging out and whatnot. And we're just talking about everything else. Like, she never mentioned anything about my leg or whatnot. And we start getting, we start vibing, and she goes to sit down, like right where my leg was. And as she's going to sit down, she makes it about halfway, and we catch her because I think I looked away, and just somehow me, Scotty, Brian, and like a couple of the team, we yell at her, no, 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 no. And she just jumps up in like fear. And it's like, what happened? And they're like, yo, no, that's real. He just broke his leg. And she's like, what? We're like, yeah. The team's now telling her, they're like, yeah, he just broke his leg like 3 hours ago. That's real. That's not a costume. And of course, she's just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. And I'm just looking at her like, no, don't worry. It's okay. Like, you didn't do anything. You didn't know because I didn't tell you anything. So we finished the party. And now my leg's starting to throb a little bit. And I think the adrenaline from the game, from everything, it's starting to set in. I'm like, hey, Scotty, I don't mean to be rude, dude, but can I go back to your house and like lay down? I was like, I'm not feeling, I'm starting to feel the pain and it's starting to hurt. So he's like, yeah, no problem. Let's go. So I get up and I'm walking. Now remember, I've only been on crutches for 3 hours. I'm trash at it. So I go out on the porch and I try to go down the steps, and it's like 3 of those concrete, like 4 steps. But there was like 3 of them that were like really steep concrete steps, and they didn't have a railing. So I couldn't grab onto a railing to get down. So as I'm getting to I think it was the first step, I had to have the crutches out pretty wide because I wasn't used to them yet. And it just so happened, I get the crutches down on like from the step. I stepped down on the first step, and the crutches were too wide so that the right one slipped off. And all of a sudden I started leaning off the top step. And as I'm leaning, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to jump on my leg. So as I fall off the step, I try to catch myself with the crutch, but I wasn't far down. Like, I was still too high to catch myself. And my leg instantly went out and tried to catch myself. So my leg hits, I jump up and I jump back on my left foot. And instantly that pain just overwhelmed me to the point where within 2 seconds, I was sweating like I ran like a marathon. And I didn't say anything. I didn't win. I just winced. And I will tell you this, I think I had to walk literally maybe like 20 or 30 feet. That was that was so difficult to walk through, even on the crutches, because the pain was so bad. And I was just like, yeah, it's time to go home. So I get in the back of Scotty's car. He drops me off. I get in the bed and he gives me water, everything. And I'm just watching TV. And I have to say, it was the worst night of sleep I ever had, because every time I would try to go to sleep, no matter whatever comfortable position I found, the pain would find me some way. And it was just excruciating, where I didn't sleep. I slept maybe a total of like 3 or 4 hours that night, because I would fall asleep for maybe like 30, 40, 50 minutes, and then wake up with like 10 or 15, like for like 20 minutes of just raw pain. And I could only take so many pills, and I had to wait like every 4 hours. So it was just horrible. I'd go to sleep twice, then take a pill. Go to sleep twice, then take a pill. And go to sleep twice and take a pill. It was just dumbfounded. It was just so stupid. And I was so pissed off. So the next day I get up and I get dressed. We go to the field. for the alumni game. I see my parents and we talk about everything and they let me know. And then out of nowhere, Will and this guy, Brian, they come up to me like, yo, dude, what'd you break? And I was like, my tibia. And Brian, all of a sudden, he's like, yes, I knew it. I told you, Will. And he's like, all right, man. And Will's just like, all right, you got me. You got me. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I didn't realize is that when I was sitting and remember when I was on my back and I heard all that, like the rump, like the noise and everything. And I heard people like standing over me. I heard people talking. Well, here it was Brian and it was Will. When I saw him standing over me, these two were standing on the sideline before they got there and they took bets on what I broke. And I have to say, it made me laugh and it made me smile just because it's like, I realized that this is how these guys are. This is how we were. And it was awesome just to hear them and to watch Brian's face, just like, yeah, I won. I told you, I knew what I was talking about. I just had to sit there and laugh. And, they watched the game and went home. And, that was pretty much, that's how I spent my Halloween at 19 years old. So, thank you very much for being here with me and starting off this second season. It's a pleasure telling, that story. I loved it. I love those memories very much. So just beware that there is a part 2 coming up. And until then, happy Halloween. Take care, enjoy your Halloween and have fun, but don't break a leg. So until next time, take care.